As Darth Sidious was secretly drawing the Clone Wars to an end, he was also ensuring that the chaos of this war was providing him with the means to rule his inevitable empire. Grievous was tasked with securing an enormous kyber crystal which had come into the possession of Sugi arm dealers. This was the same sort of crystal that powered lightsabers, but at this size it could power a battle station sized weapon. Grievous would secure the deal on the planet AUDIBLE, but Skywalker and Kenobi had discovered the existence of this crystal while investigating the death of Jedi Master Tu-On. By the time arms dealer Indante meets with Grievous, he had already received intel from his droids that the Jedi had secured the kyber.
Do you think I'm an idiot? You don't have the crystal, then there's no reason to steal with you. Deal on!
For trying to lie about losing it, Grievous decapitates him in front of the local Amani bodyguards. The general would take to a combat speeder to catch up with the fleeing Jedi, his IG-100s leaping to the platform to engage Kenobi. Together, his saber skills and Skywalker's piloting would scrap the droids, though eventually they would be overwhelmed and let the crystal fall into the hands of the Separatists. Droids would shuttle it to atmosphere, through an enormous CIS fleet, and into the hangar of a supply ship, all while the Jedi were pursuing the shuttle, with Grievous trailing in his fighter. Skywalker sets their ship on a collision course with the CIS supply ship's hyperdrive, while they take escape pods to the hangar. But the Jedi are split up and land in separate hangar bays. Grievous pursues Kenobi, and while the Jedi takes out the battle droids with ease, vultures would loom over him while droidekas blocked his exit. And after more than 2 years, Grievous was finally successful in beating his nemesis, locking the sabers and using his free hand to grab the human by the throat, choking him before throwing him to the ground. Spinning sabers in each arm, he stares into the Jedi's eyes, as Obi-Wan expects this cyborg's face to be the last thing he sees. Grievous is excited to have the opportunity to torture the Jedi that threatened his place at Dooku's side and insulted his reputation as the galaxy's greatest warrior. But the festivities were brought to a halt by none other than Anakin Skywalker. He rescues Kenobi, and together they would rush the crystal out of the hangar bay, where the Jedi jump from tank to tank, locking all the AAT's targeting computers to fire on the crystal. This overpowers the Force-connected material, and charges of energy are released in massive bolts that fire off in each direction, one of them nearly striking the general. He can tell this will eventually explode and take the entire ship with it, so he races to his fighter and is able to pursue the Jedi shuttle down the length of the hangar. Perhaps he'd be able to shoot them down if the kyber crystal did not result in such a large chain reaction that damaged the Soulless One and sent it tumbling through space. This would be followed by the successful conquest of AUDIBLE, and just days later, Grievous would act as bodyguard for his master during an enormous ceremony on the Separatist capital world of Raxus Secundus, where Dooku was receiving the Raxian Humanitarian Award. This event would see an assassination attempt on Dooku by his old apprentice, Ventress, who was working with Quinlan Vos to take out their shared enemy in the head of the CIS. Grievous was able to help thwart the attack from this Night Sister, while the next mission would involve hunting down a rogue Night brother. While Savage was killed on Mandalore, Maul had been taken prisoner, only to be freed by his Mandalorian super commandos. Darth Sidious tasked Dooku with using his resources to find the Zabrak, and Grievous was given the coordinates of old Death Watch outposts. Maul was eventually tracked to Zanbar, and Darth Sidious gave Dooku strict orders that Maul's forces were to be broken, but he must not die. Though Grievous did not understand why, he was ordered to use his entire fleet in this operation. Arriving over Zanbar, he would send several transports to the surface, and though the anti-aircraft guns took many of them out, their numbers did allow them to break through. From the bridge of his flagship, we see just how much respect he had for the people who he considered to be the greatest warriors in the history of the galaxy, saying to his tactical droid, quote, "We are not fighting clones this time. These are Mandalorian warriors. Send in everything we have, and let us hope that will be enough." As the fighting raged on, Grievous spotted Maul on the battlefront, and swooped in on his transport, of course sending his Magna Guards in first. They surrounded the fallen apprentice, though with his force powers, Darksaber, and unlimited rage, the Zabrak was able to slice through each of them. One of Maul's super commandos was calling Grievous and his forces cowards, which drew the cyborg to close in on him and quickly impale the Mandalorian with a pair of blades. Maul would come leaping at the general, when with their sabers locked, Grievous tried to break his spirit, pointing out that nearly all of his super commandos were killed by the unending wave of droids. Maul's last move was his Gauntlet Fighter's bombing run, but he knew Grievous was right, that his only option was to flee. Victorious, the general hails Count Dooku, explaining the losses on both sides and guessing his master's true purpose was to draw out Mother Talzin. Dooku confirms his suspicion, but says he will soon understand Maul's connection to the witch. Over the next few days, Maul would rally his remaining forces on Ord Mantell, and when the Separatist spy droids reported that a craft had left Dathomir, Dooku meets up with Grievous and readies the fleet for another major battle, saying they will ambush them on Ord Mantell, and if the clan mother was there, Dooku would be the one to face her. The instant the CIS fleet comes out of hyperspace, they conduct an orbital bombardment, reducing most of the city to rubble before they sent in the landing crafts. Grievous commands from the bridge, while Dooku heads down to the surface with a group of Magna Guards to hunt down the Dathomirians. As the T-Series updates him, Grievous notes that things were too quiet, not enough starfighter resistance, and just then laser cannons start blasting at the bridge. Maul knew to avoid the rest of the fleet and just focus on capturing the general. His Maul-Delorian forces would board the flagship, carve through with the Darksaber, and storm the bridge. Maul force-pushing the droids to scrap before tackling the cyborg into the transparasteel. In a split second, Grievous had one of the most coveted Jedi blades in the galaxy pressed up against his neck. Maul gives him the ultimatum to shut off the droids or get beheaded, and always ensuring that he can fight another day, he complies, and all the droid units on world went limp. A decision that could have gotten Dooku killed, as Shadow Collective forces were now free to aid the Night Brothers that were battling Dooku. With this overwhelming force, the Count was captured alive, instead of being filled with blaster bolts. Once he gets word of this, Maul communes with the spirit of the Mother, telling her that he has both of Sidious's pawns, that they could use this to get the revenge on the Sith Master. Grievous and Dooku were in their restraints and brought to their knees, while Maul hailed his old master. Sidious tried to seem unfazed, but Maul gets him to show that he was worried about losing the leader of the CIS and its top general, which would remove much of his power to manipulate the war from both sides. When he cuts off the transmission, Maul is dismissive of Grievous, seeing him as a forceless monstrosity, but he is interested in speaking with Dooku alone. Grievous is well aware that a Sith's allegiances are never to be fully trusted, and warns Dooku against betraying him, saying, quote, "It would be unfortunate if next time we meet, Count, I had to add your lightsaber to my collection." While Dooku was making it seem like he was going along with Maul's plot to turn on Sidious, he secretly unlocked a door to the brig. Grievous erupted out and smashed the guards' armor through their skulls. And though he knew this break must have been the Count's work, he immediately scrambles for the nearest escape pod, ripping several super commandos to shreds on the way to salvation. If he would have stayed here, he could have helped the Sith face off against General Kenobi, as a Republic strike team had intercepted communications and caught up with Maul's forces, having been tracking them since Obi-Wan's time on Mandalore. In the resulting battle, Master Tipley would die to Count Dooku's blade, and a volley of Mando rockets gave the Sith a chance to escape. Maul would take his remaining captive to Dathomir and summon the spirit of Mother Talzin, a storm of green Ichor energy taking over the chamber. Meanwhile, in orbit, Grievous was alone with Sidious, something that had not happened throughout the course of the war. Dooku had always been the intermediary, and the general must have thought that this mission would bring him even closer to the true ruler of the galaxy, securing his role in the future state of the galaxy that Dooku had only alluded to. They were aboard the Scimitar, Maul's old personal ship that had one of the best stealth suites ever produced. Activating their cloaking tech, they would descend to the Witch's Coven, where Dooku was currently being possessed by the Night Mother's spirit. As the ritual was underway, a wall explodes and Grievous and Sidious step forward. After some insults are traded and Dooku regains consciousness, he stands up with green ichor flowing out of his eyes. Talzin's spirit would rush towards Sidious, hoping to get revenge on the Sith that had betrayed her decades earlier, while Grievous worked on earning himself the Darksaber. But as they fought, they couldn't stop from being drawn to the awe of the battle beside them, the two most powerful wielders of different dark arts fighting to the death. When it looked like Force lightning was overwhelming the puppet body, Talzin is able to complete the life-draining ritual and physically reanimate. In orbit, a Separatist fleet had just arrived, and Maul was able to deliver a powerful Force push that sent Grievous flying out of the chamber. Ichor and Force powers clashed, and Maul adds his powers to his mother, while Dooku recovers to contribute his own bolts of lightning. The fate of the galaxy would be decided here, and Grievous sees his chance. It's times like these that prove to Grievous that concepts like a warrior's honor, glory of a fair fight, were the weak-minded delusions of the flesh, and he was happy to be rid of them both. As he walked up to the mother, she knew this battle was lost, and used her final burst of strength to push her son back into the arms of the super commandos who had just arrived, fleeing from the fleet in orbit. Exhausted, she collapses before the cyborg. Grievous's only words were a cold, "It's time," before he puts a pair of sabers through her chest. With Grievous's help, Sidious had finally tied up this loose end, this one thread out there that could challenge his mastery of the supernatural energies. With the Night Sister Order defeated, the only other threat to Darth Sidious was the Jedi Order.